Elena Voss stood at the edge of the great hall, her hands folded tightly in front of her, as if holding herself together by force. Around her, the entire Cane pack had gathered for the monthly gathering, the same gathering she had attended for 3 years without ever truly belonging. She was the Luna in name only, mated to Alpha Damien Cane by the bond the moon goddess had woven between them, yet treated like a stranger in her own home. Damien stood at the front of the hall, tall and commanding, his dark eyes scanning the crowd with the confidence of a man who had never once doubted his place in the world. Beside him stood Ivy, her hand resting on her rounded stomach, a small smile playing at her lips. Elena had seen that smile before. It was the smile of someone who already knew she had won. "I have an announcement," Damien said, his voice carrying easily across the silent hall. "Ivy is carrying my child. She will be given a place of honor in this pack, and I intend to treat her as my true partner from this day forward." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elena felt her heart drop into her stomach, though she was not surprised. She had known for months that something was wrong, that Damien spent his nights elsewhere, that his coldness toward her was not simple indifference but something closer to disgust. Still, hearing it spoken aloud, in front of everyone she had once called family, was a different kind of pain. "And what of Elena?" an older pack member asked carefully, glancing toward her. Damien did not even look in her direction. "Elena has never truly been my mate. The bond was a mistake of fate, nothing more. She is free to go wherever she wishes." The words landed like a physical blow. Elena felt every eye in the room turn to her, waiting to see how she would break. She would not give them the satisfaction. She lifted her chin, though her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall, and she turned without a word, and walked out of the hall. No one followed her. No one called her name. The doors closed behind her with a heavy, final sound, and Elena found herself standing alone in the cold night air, the moon high and silver above the trees. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay another moment in the place that had made her feel so small. She walked until the packlands were far behind her, until the lights of the Cane territory disappeared into the darkness, until her legs ached and her breath came in ragged gasps. Finally, exhausted, she stumbled into a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees, their branches twisted with age. In the center stood a weathered stone shrine, half covered in moss, dedicated to the moon goddess herself. Elena had heard stories of this place as a child, tales of an old shrine deep in the forest, where the goddess sometimes listened to those in need. She had always thought it was just a story to comfort children. She sank to her knees before the stone, too tired and too heartbroken to care whether the legend was true. "Why?" she whispered into the night. "Why did you bind me to a man who never wanted me? What was the purpose of all this pain?" The wind stirred, though there was no storm. The moonlight above her seemed to grow brighter, gathering into a soft glow that spilled across the clearing like liquid silver. Elena lifted her head, startled, as the light began to take shape before her, forming into the figure of a woman with flowing silver hair and eyes like the night sky. "You have carried more than you should have had to carry, my daughter," the figure said, her voice gentle yet powerful, echoing in Elena's chest rather than her ears. Elena could hardly breathe. "Are you the moon goddess?" "I am," the figure replied, "and you are not simply a rejected mate, Elena. You are of my own bloodline, a descendant of a line thought lost generations ago. I have watched you endure cruelty with patience and grace, and now the time has come for you to know the truth of who you are." Elena shook her head slowly, unable to comprehend the words. "I don't understand. I'm no one. I have no family, no pack that wants me, nothing." "You have always had a family," the goddess said. "You simply did not know where to look. Your grandmother's grandmother was born of my own line, gifted with strength beyond ordinary wolves, and a duty to protect those who could not protect themselves. That gift has slept in your blood for generations, waiting for the right moment to awaken. That moment is now." As she spoke, the silver light gathered around Elena, wrapping her in warmth she had never felt before. She felt something shift deep within her, a strength rising from a place she had not known existed, as though a door long locked had finally opened. "You will feel the change taking hold in the days to come," the goddess continued. "Your senses will sharpen. Your strength will grow beyond what you knew as a rejected mate, and upon your skin, you will carry my mark, so that any who look upon you will know you are protected by more than mortal law." Elena looked down at her hands, trembling. "Why me? Why now?" "Because you never let bitterness harden your heart, even when you had every reason to. That is the mark of a true leader, Elena. Power given to the cruel only breeds more cruelty. Power given to the kind can heal what is broken." The goddess's expression softened further, filled with something like pride. "But know this, the path ahead will not be easy. Word will spread quickly once others sense the shift in power. Some will come to you with respect. Others will come seeking to use you, or to destroy what they do not understand. You must be ready." Elena swallowed hard, fear and wonder mixing together in her chest. "I don't know if I can do this." "You do not have to do it alone," the goddess said. "You never truly were alone, even in your darkest nights. I was always watching. Now, it is time for you to stand." The light began to fade, the figure of the goddess dissolving back into moonlight and shadow. Elena reached out instinctively, but the clearing was empty once more, save for the old stone shrine and the gentle rustle of leaves in the night wind. She looked down at her arm and gasped softly. A delicate silver mark, shaped like a crescent moon wrapped in vines, glowed faintly against her skin before settling into something that looked almost like a natural birthmark, visible only when she chose to let it show. For the first time in years, Elena felt something other than sorrow rise within her. It was not anger, not exactly. It was purpose. The following weeks passed in a blur of change. Elena found shelter with a small, kind family of wolves living on the outskirts of the forest. Humble folk who had no allegiance to any great pack and asked no questions of the quiet woman who had stumbled into their lives. She spent her days learning to understand the strength now flowing through her, testing her senses, her speed, the quiet authority in her voice that seemed to make even seasoned wolves pause and listen. Word travels quickly among packs, and it was not long before whispers began to spread of a woman bearing the mark of the moon goddess, someone with a presence that could calm a frightened wolf or command respect from a hardened warrior with nothing more than a glance. Some packs sent scouts to find her, curious and cautious. Others, sensing an opportunity, hoped to use her growing reputation for their own gain. Elena met each of them with the same steady calm the goddess had shown her, neither seeking power for its own sake, nor allowing herself to be used as a tool for others' ambitions. Meanwhile, back within the Cain pack, cracks had begun to form that no one could ignore. Ivy, once so certain of her place at Damien's side, grew increasingly demanding and unkind now that she believed her position was secure. Small lies she had told to secure Damien's affection slowly began to unravel, noticed first by the pack healer, who found inconsistencies in the timeline of her pregnancy that did not add up to what Ivy had claimed. Damien, distracted by the growing tension in his pack and haunted by a strange unease he could not name, found himself thinking of Elena more often than he expected. He told himself it was simply guilt, nothing more, yet the memory of her quiet dignity as she walked out of the hall that night lingered in his mind in ways he could not shake. It was the pack healer who finally brought him the truth. Ivy was not as far along as she claimed, and further, there were serious doubts about whether the child was even his. Damien confronted her, and after tearful denials collapsed under the weight of evidence, Ivy finally admitted the truth. She had lied to secure a place of power within the pack, believing that once she was established as Luna, the truth would no longer matter. The pack's trust in Damien, already weakened by his treatment of Elena, shattered further under the news. Whispers turned to open discontent. Elders who had once respected his leadership began to question whether he was fit to lead a pack he had so carelessly torn apart over lies and cruelty. It was around this time that word reached the Cain territory of the woman bearing the moon goddess's mark, said to be gathering the respect of packs throughout the region through wisdom and quiet strength rather than force. When a description of her was shared, an elder who had known Elena since she was a child paled and quietly told Damien the truth. The woman they spoke of was Elena. Damien could hardly believe it, yet something deep within him, some quiet remnant of the mate bond he had so easily dismissed, told him it was true. Elena returned to the Cain lands several weeks later, not because she sought vengeance or reconciliation, but because the pack elders, desperate and uncertain after Damien's authority had crumbled, had sent a formal request for her guidance. She arrived at dusk, the last light of the sun mixing with the rising moon, and stood at the edge of the same hall where she had once been humiliated. This time, when she walked through the doors, the room did not stay silent in judgment. It stilled in something closer to awe. The mark upon her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight streaming through the windows, and there was a calm strength in the way she carried herself that had not been there before. Damien stepped forward, his expression a mixture of shame and disbelief. "Elena," he said quietly, "I did not know. I am sorry, truly, for everything." Elena looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time, she felt no ache in her chest at the sight of him, only a quiet, settled peace. "I did not come back for an apology, Damien," she said gently. "I came because your pack asked for guidance, and I will not turn my back on people in need, even if their leader once turned his back on me." The elders around them nodded solemnly, and one by one, pack members who had once looked away in her presence, now bowed their heads with genuine respect. Ivy, humiliated by the exposure of her lies, had already fled the territory rather than face the pack she had tried to deceive. Damien, stripped of the confidence that had once defined him, found himself standing before the woman he had discarded, now recognized as far more than he had ever imagined her to be. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now," Elena said, "the pack will begin to heal, with honesty and fairness guiding its choices, not fear or favoritism. I will help where I am needed, but I will not stay chained to a place that only valued me, once it realized what it had lost." She turned to address the gathered pack, her voice steady and clear. "I do not seek to rule over you, nor to punish you for the past. I ask only that you choose leadership built on respect, not cruelty, and that no one among you ever again be made to feel as small as I once did in this very hall." The pack responded with quiet, unified agreement, a promise not just to her, but to themselves. In the months that followed, Elena did not remain within the Cane pack, though she visited when called upon to offer guidance during difficult times. Instead, she built something entirely her own, a growing community of wolves who had once felt forgotten or overlooked, united not by bloodline or old rivalries, but by the same quiet strength and fairness the moon goddess had first awakened in her. Damien, humbled by all that had happened, worked slowly to rebuild the trust of his pack, no longer the arrogant alpha who believed his choices carried no consequence. He never tried to reclaim Elena as his mate, understanding at last that some bonds, once broken by cruelty, could not simply be mended by regret. As for Elena, she often returned to the small clearing where the ancient shrine stood, kneeling beneath the moonlight, not out of sorrow, but gratitude. The goddess had been right. She had never truly been alone, even in her darkest nights. And now, beneath the same silver moon that had once witnessed her humiliation, she stood as exactly what she was always meant to become, not a rejected mate waiting to be chosen, but a leader who had chosen herself.